Hey everybody, it's Mike with On Point Preparedness. I got a good episode for you guys today. I was going to do this earlier, but some crazy stuff happened over the last 24 hours, so I'm glad I held off so that I could show you some of this stuff. Last episode, we talked about the Sound of Freedom movie and why I believe it's a deception. It's a very cunning deception from the enemy. We talked about how the enemy is using very moral and righteous things like the fight against abortion, like the fight against child rings, the fight against tyranny, and he's taking these things which are inherently evil, but having these movements be led by people that are not righteous but claim to be, by people that claim to be Christians but really don't have the true gospel. And so we talked a little bit about Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel and how this links to Trump. Well, more stuff came out just recently from Jim Caviezel, which is pretty outlandish. I showed you how he is very much into the Q movement and how he actually made a direct comparison between Anons, Q Anons, and Christians. We'll look at that video again in case you haven't seen that's just that one snippet, because those are some very outlandish things. But he just recently compared Trump to Moses, which is something that I covered back in 2020. Many of the QAnon folks were comparing Trump to Moses and let my people go. They were also comparing him to Jesus. We covered that in detail. I'll show you the video in which I did that. But really crazy stuff coming out of here. And I looked at some of the comments from my last video, and some people just they don't understand. Like, Mike, why are you fighting against this movie? This movie is a good thing. How dare you speak out against this movie? And so I'm just gonna clarify this, one more time. What all these people are doing is evil. People like Jim Caviezel, people like Trump, people like Tim Ballard, all of those, even though they're Mormon, even though they have QAnon beliefs, even though they have New Age beliefs, I do believe at some point through this exposure, God is going to use those people to inflict judgment on the people doing all those evil things. God uses evil nations, as part of His strong hand to inflict discipline and judgment on other nations. And so I think that's all going to happen. Looks like my camera is wigging out here, so sorry about that. But all that aside, we cannot join hands with these people. We cannot become unequally yoked with these people. And we have to be very careful about it. Because right now, there's all these quote-unquote Christian movements being led by people that have different gospels. And it's really sweeping not just the nation, but the world in terms of, taking down tyranny, taking down the ped rings, taking down all this stuff. And my fear is that this is going to lead to a type of delusion. So let's take a look at what Jim Caviezel said here and get rid of my choppy screen. So here it is. This was just within the last 24 hours. Take a look at the title too. Crowd-funded Christian movie Sound of Freedom goes over $100 million gross income, tops Mission Impossible, and the star Jim Caviezel calls Trump a new Moses on Fox. Another one. So this is news everywhere. Like I said, the Sound of Freedom thing, it is being heavily popularized by the media. Even if it's negative news, it's still giving the movie even more and more popularity because people are questioning, what is this? Maybe I should go see it. But so this is no small thing. We've seen this agenda, if you will, of taking down the deep state, taking down the cabals, taking down the tyrannical elites and their elite rings. We see it gaining momentum week by week, month by month, year by year. But let's actually listen to what he has to say. Now, he makes a comparison saying Trump is the new Moses, but I'm still Jesus. Now, if you actually listen to the tone of what he says, now, of course, he's joking, which it shouldn't even be a joke, right? You shouldn't even really joke about you being Jesus, even though you're the actor. But when he when you listen to the tone of his voice, he's not really joking about Trump. And he talks about Trump being the new Moses multiple times. So let's have a listen here. We'll take a look at this shortened clip. Make sure you guys can hear this.
We have to do a lot more, and we got to start with Donald Trump.
What do you mean?
Well, he's got to be in there because he's going to go after the traffickers.
Do you think he understands that?
We were with him last night.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Bedminster, yes.
Yeah. Oh, so he's going to be moved to do something. I didn't know that.
Oh,
he wasn't
he's
here
gonna,
last night.
This is the new Moses. I mean, I'm still Jesus, but he's the new Moses. Pharaoh, let my children go free.
All right. I did not know that was an impressive screening at Bedminster, I guess. Yeah. Eduardo, Jim Caviezel, great to see you again. Yeah. Congrats.
So, I mean, just check out the tone, right? He says, I'm still Jesus. I mean, that part you can see an inflection in his voice that he's sort of joking. But when he talks about Trump being a Moses, again, Caviezel is very much in the QAnon camp. And I'll show you in my 2020 video, this is all that they were posting. They were saying that Trump is Moses. But listen again to what he has to say here.
I mean, I'm still Jesus.
He wasn't here last night.
This is the new Moses. I mean, I'm still Jesus, but he's the new Moses. Pharaoh, let my children go free.
All right.
I mean, he's very serious about this. All right, let's look. He said, I was with Trump, and Trump, we need to get him in there, meaning we need to get him in the presidency because he is going to do something. So they're having talks. Actually, let's see. I don't know where this was. They said Bedminster or somewhere, but special screening. Trump even had a speech there. You can see Jim Caviezel over there on the left. Trump here. He's congratulating Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard was there as well, and just saying, this is something that we need to take care of, and these guys are great leaders. But here again, you have Jim Caviezel. I believe this is his real Twitter account, even though he doesn't have the blue check mark. As you look through his posts, it really seems like this is the legit account. He says, President Trump is going to save children, the likes of which you have never seen. You might even say he is the new Moses, telling Pharaoh, the world cabal, let the children go free. So he's very serious about this. He said the part about him being Jesus in jest, but the other part, no, not so much. Mr. President, you are the new Moses, but I'm still Jesus. So that part in jest, little wink face there. Sound of freedom. So yeah. The movie itself, there's not deception in and of the movie itself, but you have to see the grander delusion, what this is setting up for, and who this is all being led by, and who it's giving popularity and voice to. That is the deepest concern here. Now here's the 2020 video that I was referring to. Disturbing trends, info bombardment, Trump idolatry and rebellion. I spent a good hour and a half talking about this delusion that many Christians who support Trump were under. Trying to say that Jesus is like Trump is like a new Jesus. They clearly started to say, Jesus is our real savior, but Jesus or God is using Trump in order to save the people, save the nation. So it's like circular talk here. But I go through tons and tons of examples. You can see here, these were lots of the images shared about Trump, again, parting the water, going through the water, leading the people, or letting the people free with the nation's flag, etc., etc. There was a whole bunch of articles. We're not going to go through all of them. But you can see here, even Newsmax just recently, they're starting to ride this boat of President Trump needs a Moses moment now. So there's just a lot of comparisons that people are using with Trump to the Bible or to Jesus or to Moses. And again, it's highly unbiblical, and it's just really, really bad idolatry. Now, I played this clip in my last video, but in case you weren't able to watch the whole thing, because it was about like a 45-minute show, this is where Jim Caviezel compares Christians directly to QAnon, saying that, hey, Christians were targeted or the followers of Jesus were targeted by the Pharisees because they held some type of truth. And he's like, look at what's happening to QAnons. They're the ones being targeted. They're the ones being silenced. So he's making this direct comparison to them. And, I've got videos on QAnon and why it is very, very dangerous New Age philosophy, a pseudo-Christianity. And so once you understand that about the whole QAnon movement, you'll understand why this man is so incredibly dangerous. Not just because of his Catholic beliefs. We covered that as well. How he talks about Mary is the co-redemptrix along with Jesus. It's a Catholic belief that was practiced all throughout Catholicism, but was really brought to the surface by Pope John Paul II. Aside from the Catholic stuff, again, very, very New Age with the QAnon roots. But listen to what he has to say here.
One could say that they're also racist, but they don't go after those. Only the QAnon. Now, by way of analogy,
about 1 minute remaining.
If I were the Apostle Saul, and I'm a Pharisee, I'm going to go after the Christians. I'm going to take them down. Now, remove Christians and let's make it QAnon. I'm going to destroy them because the Romans told me they're evil. I'm going to destroy them because my own church staff, my fellow Pharisees said evil. I'm going to take them out. And then you find out it's not QAnon. It's Q and Anons. And Q puts out a question, and you're not allowed to ask questions anymore.
So again, he is an incredibly dangerous man, and people that still want to support him and support this film, they really don't understand how much popularity is being given to him and the voice that he's having now, right? Going on Fox News, going on tons and tons of broadcasts, Charlie Kirk show. Millions and millions of people are consuming the stuff that is coming out of his mouth now. Similar to The Chosen. Dallas, the producer, and Jonathan Rummy. I mean, they've all got voices outside of that show where they're sharing, very dangerous things. Jonathan Rummy, going to huge rallies, telling people to practice the rosary with him, praying to Mary. I mean, these things they're not innocuous. They're not innocent. They're truly deceiving people spiritually killing people. I mean, that's really what it is. Here again, President Trump sits front row center watching Sound of Freedom. Qanon Caviezel on one side, Tim Ballard on the other. All right, but that's all I've got to say about the Sound of Freedom thing, in addition to what I had last time. But it's not just Jim Caviezel saying outlandish things. I want to cover one more thing that Trump just recently said at what was it, like a CPAC or no, Turning Point Action Republican conference. So if you're not aware of this, I detail this again in Disturbing Trends, this info bombardment video I did back in 2 years ago. But Trump says a lot of very strange things. He's like an enigma, and it's very sort of like insidious types of phrases. He'll stress certain things that seem to imply more than two meanings, more than just its surface meaning. There's like a hidden meaning under it as well. One of them, so I'll play this for you just real quick. I don't want to get a copyright strike, but let's see. This was back six years ago. He reads the snake poem and talks about how a woman finds this injured snake, takes the snake into her home, tries to care for the snake, and then the snake bites her, and then she's dying, and she's like, why have you hurt me? I took good care of you. And the snake pretty much says, oh, you're a silly dumb woman. Why would you ever let a snake into your home? And so the surface level, the very apparent context is, a lot of people thought it was due to like immigration, just letting everyone in, and then the snake bites you. And that's actually, I'm saving it for another video, but that's what a lot of people are saying is happening all over Europe, and especially in France with the what seems to be a lot of the migrant riots that were happening up there. That's the surface level interpretation. However, the background, hidden, maybe spiritual interpretation of this, which some people believe, is that he's actually referring to himself. That he wooed the church and he wooed the nation, and he himself was the snake, and is essentially will destroy the nation. And because of his divisiveness, he very much is polarizing the nation. And it's not just him, it's also, you know, the left as well. But it really is destroying the nation. And I think in the next year, with this upcoming election cycle, things are going to get rough. But here's what he was reciting.
Who has heard the poem called The Snake? So I have it. Does anybody want to hear it again? You sure? Are you sure?
So he said that 6 years ago, and now at Turning Point Action, President Trump just read The Snake again.
Some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and as soon as she arrived...
So it's just sort of strange things that he does, and a lot of the times he'll repeat certain things as well. So you've heard other things like, you know, the storm is coming. That was something that I think he's said on multiple occasions in tweets, as well as in the infamous video where he was captured saying that in the White House. So again, I think there's really two different meanings to what he has to say, and it's just very, very vague and very odd. Here's another one. So Trump, as I've covered before, is a very violent man. If you look at people who have been physically harmed by him, women who have been physically harmed by him, he is a very violent man. And based on what he's said in the past, he hates traitors and he will get utter revenge on them. And so some of the things he's saying of recently speak of violence. And he's still, you know, with the woke left movement being blatantly exposed more and more and more, and more people starting to realize, hey, this isn't right. There is some type of elite thing going on. More people, I think, are starting to gravitate towards things that Trump was talking about earlier during his presidency. And I forgot where I was going with this, but so if he were to take power, just because the elites are against him, there's still a ton of people that support him. Military, police, firefighters, blue-collar workers. Even if he's upsetting people in his own camp, like in the conservative party, because there are like Christians who originally supported him are starting to back off. I mean, I still think he's widely popular. And if he were to, again, have that indictment, which causes people to try to free him or do what, I mean, there's so many things that could happen. But if he ever gets put in a position of power again, some of the things I'm going to show you right now are fairly disturbing. So this was yesterday. This is on his Truth Social platform. Donald J. Trump retruthed this video.
If you fuck around with us, if you do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
So if you F with us, if you do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before. So we don't know the full context of where that clip was taken from, but it was just that one little clip from MAGA.com, and he retweeted it. That is a very violent statement, and it is in line with things that he said all throughout his life. This is the kind of man he is. So let's look at this interview from the 80s. I want to look at, I think this is from the 80s or 90s, the two different things that he said here. So this clip is, again, from that Disturbing Trends video I did back 2 years ago. Let's have a quick listen.
I used to say, and in fact I think I said in my first book that, and maybe this was foolish, but I really meant it, that someday I'd like to maybe lose everything for a period of time to see who's loyal and who's not loyal. And I frankly found out a lot of things.
Did you find out who's loyal and not loyal?
I tell you what, and you can't guess it. You can't predict it. You think certain people would be loyal no matter what, and it turns out that they're not. And you just can't predict it. It's very difficult.
So first interesting point, he talks about how at some point he'd like to lose it all just to see who's truly loyal. Again, with what's happening to him today, lots of people started falling away from him. I wonder, you know, with this type of mentality, he's really thinking about who truly is loyal to me. And for those that are disloyal, this is what he had to say about them back in the 80s or 90s, whenever this 1992 interview.
You know, some of the people that were most loyal to me are people that I didn't think would be. Some of the people that were least loyal to me are people that I think I would have treated them differently. I think I would have treated different groups differently. I would have wiped the floor with the guys that weren't loyal, which I will now do, which is great. You know, I love getting even with people, but I would have wiped.
You love getting even.
Oh, absolutely. You don't believe in the eye for the eye. You do.
No.
I know you well enough. I think you do. But anyway,
but tell me. I mean, you're going to get even with some people.
Yeah, I know. If given the opportunity, I will get even with some people that were disloyal to me. I mean, I had a group of people that were disloyal.
But how do you define disloyal?
They didn't come to my aid.
Well, what did they do? They turned their back on you?
No, but they didn't do small things that would have helped. You see, I'm so loyal.
So even it wasn't that they just turned their back on him. They didn't do small things that could have helped. And even with that, he's saying that he's going to wipe the floor with them. Again, if he comes to a position of power, what exactly? Now maybe he's all talk, but I don't think so. I think he's personally, he's been personally insulted, like by the left, by people in his own base. I think he very much wants revenge. And so, yeah, when you look at things like this, where he's like, if you mess with us, if you do something bad to us, we're going to do things to you that have never been done before. That's sort of, if you could think about this from like a end times perspective, that's quite disturbing, especially if the people are for that, right? So if this is the deep state he's talking about, the cabal, the tyrannical people, and I've shown you all the clips worldwide, especially during the lockdowns, how people were parading around with mannequins on nooses. They talked about the gallows. They talked about the guillotines, all this stuff. There's some people which might actually cheer this on. So, and again, real quick, I don't claim Trump is the Antichrist. So I'm not there yet. He's on a short list, but I can't say for sure. But just seeing how much of a role he's played and seeing how there's so much religious stuff surrounding him, and it's just, he's definitely playing a very major part in this. And the Holy Spirit will reveal things in time. So at this point, I'm not dogmatic in saying like he is the Antichrist, but he's definitely someone to watch, because he's definitely a catalyst for something, and this is one of those big things. So there's been indictment charges before that we looked at Trump with regards to like hush money and stuff like that, little stuff. But here's the big indictments that we're waiting for. There's the J6 probe, and then I think they're still going after him with the classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. But the big one is the J6 probe. So this was on July 18th. Trump told by special counsel he is a criminal target in the J6 probe. So they were actually thinking that he was going to get indicted today, as early as today. But I just looked this up, and I guess there were some issues where there's now a delay again in the J6 verdict. They don't specify. I mean, this was just 2 hours ago that they put this article out. They didn't say when the next hearing is or whatnot. But with him being a presidential candidate, him saying that, they're trying to get me out of the race, the left even flat out saying that they're going to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't run. I mean, can you imagine the turmoil that will come about from this? If they do criminally prosecute him, they do indict him for this, they try to prevent him from running. If they go so far as, doing things like mug shots, which they haven't done previously, all that stuff. Wow. I mean, this can cause some real turmoil. And again, Trump still has a very huge supportive base. Along with some of the other threats that we've covered, I mean, this is common to him, but Trump threatens Jack Smith, who's the special counsel that's prosecuting him, saying it'd be very dangerous if he did that. More so talking about the outrage of the nation and what the nation might do. So talking about putting Donald Trump in jail. Trump said, I think it's a very dangerous thing to even talk about this, because we do have a tremendously passionate group of voters, much more passion than they had in 2020 and much more passion than they had in 2016. I think it would be very dangerous. And indeed, you know, when they were talking about indicting him for the hush money over the New York grand indictment, people were talking about all over the news that, you know, if you try to parade him in handcuffs or take photos, it is going to cause an outrage in the country. And again, if they do that, which they might, if you think about this spiritually, what's going on here, Trump is sort of being quote unquote martyred. It could set up for some very dangerous times. So we all know this. Very, very interesting year that's going to be coming up here in 2024. I mean, it's hard to imagine. It's hard to contemplate all the things that we just don't know yet. But we can take solace in the fact that our Lord knows everything, beginning to end. We're in His hand. We don't need to worry about this stuff. We shouldn't stress about this stuff. But we should be very, very attentive to what's happening. Mostly for the brothers and sisters who don't quite know yet the delusion and the deceptions that are being formulated right now. So if the Lord has given you discernment about these things and you find my videos helpful, you know, this is the time to, you know, investigate these things and then try to start teaching people about what's going on and possibilities, so that they're not caught up in these movements. Because, you know, one of the interesting things, I'll just close with this. One of the interesting conversations I had with one of my coworkers. Let me just get off of here. Hopefully my screen doesn't bug out. But one of the interesting conversations I had with my coworkers is we were talking about the election and everything that was going to happen. And she said, you know what? The devil is overplaying his hand. He's doing too much evil and he's getting carried away, and now people are finally seeing it. And those of you who have watched my channel over the past 2 years, you'll know that I told you guys that seems to be the devil's plan. He's purposefully exposing evil so that people get absolutely infuriated, that people want to rebel against government and take it down and destroy it, which seems like a righteous thing because it seems like we're destroying evil. But as the Bible says, that is actually in rebellion to God, because it is God who puts in place kings and leaders. And if it's a bad leader and a bad government, it's because the people have been bad, and the Lord will use tyrannical governments to punish the people. That's what I believe happened during the whole lockdowns and everything. We're a very sinful nation. We're a very sinful world. And I think, you know, that was part of God's judgment in order to get people to come to repentance. But it was just so interesting, you know, having this conversation with a coworker. She sees it. She's like, you know what? The devil, he thought he was getting away with his plan, but he overshowed his hand, and finally people are now starting to catch on. And I just sort of was grieving on the inside, because I had actually told her a year earlier my beliefs on what was happening. But, you know, she didn't recall it. So at some point I'll have to try to, you know, bring that back up again. But, you know, I alluded to this multiple times, especially, you know, with how my channel was in the beginning, back in 2014, 2015. I was huge into exposing Illuminati symbolism. That's why I got so many subscribers to begin with. It was because I talked about how bad the Federal Reserve was, how they're stealing money, government corruption, Illuminati symbolism, you know, all sorts of conspiracies. I mean, that was my jazz. And, you know, I thought it was fun covering this stuff. I actually thought like I was doing something godly, but it really wasn't. But then at some point, the Lord started to like really convict me to move away from that. I didn't quite understand why yet. But now seeing how this type of genre, you know, just exposing the elites, exposing the world controlling system, exposing Illuminati, all this stuff, it's now becoming a major trend. and it's involved in the delusion and deception of people. And so, thinking about how God looks out for us even when we don't know about it, for me it comes full circle. It's like, oh, I know I was convicted of why I was moving away from that, because I told people in one of my shows, I was like, it was fun, and I thought I was like semi good at it in terms of looking at occult symbolism, because again, it was a cult. Occult means hidden. There were symbols and there were things that people were saying in music videos and all sorts of stuff, advertisements, that was, you could see it, but it was a cult. It was hidden. There was a hidden meaning. But you had to do some research in order to understand that. And then I started realizing, well, it's not really hidden anymore. It's not even really a cult. You don't even need someone to do research, because it's just like flat out. There's music videos with a pyramid with an all-seeing eye at the top of it, and there's people bowing down, like in not Justin Bieber, but some other music video. I mean, stuff just got so ridiculous. It was just right out in your face. You didn't need anyone to decode that. You didn't need any special symbolicist or whatever. I mean, it was just right there. And at that point, I really started to realize what was going on. It's like the devil was purposefully trying to make these things known. He is trying to enrage people, and he's trying to get them to get into this state of rebellion. And so, once you understand that, you start to really see how cunning he is, and how he will exploit things that seem good, in order to deceive people in a certain way, right? I mean, just like going back to the Garden of Adam and Eve, exploiting something of the fruit is good to eat, and Eve took the fruit and she thought it was good to eat. And like using things like that and deceiving people. It's been his game all along. So with that, we're right about 30 minutes here. I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, I might be able to get another video out this weekend, more so focusing on what happened in France, because that was crazy. And although there was a small lull with those riots sort of tamping down, doesn't seem like it's over. So we might cover that in the next one. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. God bless everybody.